Hello everyone, I hope everyone is healthy and safe. This week we will cover culture. So we will start with the definition of culture, then we will check the impact of organizational culture, how the dominant culture affect the organization. Then we will go over the cultural concepts. For example, we have concept of low and high context by Hall, and also we will continue with Hofstadt's cultural dimensions. Okay, guys, from our international community, you can understand each culture has differences, and these differences enriches the environment and is a good thing. But within the business environment, if we are dealing with international business, you might get surprised by how the reactions of employees, managers, or the customers. We tend to have a humanistic that deep inside all people are the same, but they are not. For this reason, if we go into another country and make decisions based on how we operate in our home country, the chances are we will make some very bad decision. So to summarize this, you should think global and act local. And you should realize that the country that you are have different norms and behaviors, and you should adapt these to smoothly continue your working practices. So what is culture? Anthropologist James Bartley gives a definition of culture as knowledge. According to James, culture is the acquired knowledge people use to interpret experience and generate behavior. And if you check your norms and behaviors, those indicates your previous knowledge and the experiences that you face while you grow up. Let's continue with Edward Hall. He is one of the affecting scholars, and works are really valuable within the culture and effect on businesses. So, according to Hall, there are ideas and metaphors, and culture is made up models and templates. Culture is the medium we live in, and it's like the air we breathe to survive. Culture is innate but learned. For example, we are born with the physical necessity and capacity to specialize our bodies, brains, and hearts in line with cultural patterns. Culture is living, interlocking system, touch one part where the rest moves. Culture is shared within groups. It is created and maintained through relationship. And the term culture is used to differentiate one group from another. And division into groups comes first. Deliberate differentiation via cultural symbols comes second. So, anthropologists Edward Hall introduced two terms used to describe broad brush differences between societies. First one is high context, and second one is low context. Within high context societies, the relationship between family members, friends, and colleagues are much more intense and close when compared with the relationship within low context societies. So the group size within high context is larger than the group size within the low context societies. So how this might have an effect on management and technology? Consider that you are assigned as a manager for an international company, and the culture is really high context. Within that, you should be aware of that the teams might have closer relationships, they know each other very well, they spend too much time together. So you should use the information systems in a way that it encourages their cooperation, collaboration, sharing, and support. You might give more group works than individual tasks. Furthermore, Hall was also concerned with time, in which he considered in two waves like monochronic and polychronic. So for monochronic cultures, these indicates groups of people or individuals who performs one task at a time. On the other end, polychronic describes that people can do many tasks together. Okay? Much more multitasking. Okay, let's move on with high context. Societies where groups may have close connections over a long period of time, strong cohesion, strong bonds, high commitment, strong boundaries, those with accepted and those with outsiders. So if you are within the team, you will know everything related to your mate. If not, you will have few knowledge about the others. Members know what to think and do from years of interaction with each other. It can be taken for granted. Many covert and implied messages, use of metaphor, reading between the lines. There is much nonverbal communication and the process of inward reactions. And process is more important than product. Relationships are more important than task. Decisions face to face often around central person who has an authority. So let's see examples for high context groups, like small religious congregations or family gatherings or undergraduate on-campus friendships or expensive gourmet restaurants with regular clients. Okay, Hall believes that situations are the building blocks of individual lives, institutions, and culture, which include greeting, working, eating, bargaining, fighting, governing, going to school, cooking, hanging out, etc. People master of hundreds of situational dialects, which are used in specific circumstances, and situational frames are relatively high context. So let's move on with love context. Many connections, but of shorter duration or for specific reason. Loose wide networks, and the relationships are much more compartmentalized. Less chance of misunderstanding because it is more rule oriented and more organized. More knowledge is codified, public, external, overt, and explicit. Accessible and transferable. It needs to be spelled out. Everything is more clear. More interpersonal connections but short duration. It is task centered, focuses on what needs to be done. Flexible grouping, changes as task needs. Fragile bonds, low commitment to relationships. And as an outsider, you can easily enter to a group. Focus on verbal communication, not body language. Visible outward reactions is important. So examples, sports, large airports, a cafeteria. And also let's say an example business fight. If you're talking about a French agreement or contract, contracts tend to be short in physical length, not time duration, as much of the information is available within high context of French culture. But when you are dealing with an American client, content is low context, so contracts tend to be longer and explain every detail. Okay, so time. Monochronic time tend to be low context people doing one thing at a time, as I already mentioned, concentrate on the job in hand and puts job first. Depends on careful planning, scheduling, and emphasizes on promptness. It is more familiar within the Western culture, appears in disciplines such as time management. And Americans and Germans are strongly monochronic, according to Hall. And let's check polychronic is more related with high context people. They put relationship first. Human interaction is more important than time and material things, doing many things at once, and they are easily distracted. Lesser concern for getting things done, they get done in their own time. But my advice as a student, you don't have any chance related to that. You should meet the deadlines. Okay, They borrow and lend things because of the closeness of the relationships. And as an example, French have a greater polychronic tendency. So, Aborigines have typical polychronic culture where meetings can go on for as long as someone has something to say. When working across cultures, pay attention to high and low cultures through the actions of others. You can observe it easily if you have some cross cultural training. And we also have some metaphors, cultural metaphors. So, for example, culture as an iceberg. It implies danger, the necessity of having a skilled pilot, and justified use of culture experts, as there is much more to culture than meets the eye. So, about the waterline, aspects of culture that are visible, explicit, and taught, and it includes written explanations. Skills and information conveyed through formal lessons such as manners or baking bread. Tangible aspects such as tourists seek out French bread or conformity in the way people dress, how they pronounce the letter R, how they season their food, the way we expect offices to be furnished. And we have another scholar who has significant work within the context of culture, Hofstadt. He conducted interviews with hundreds of IBM employees in 53 countries during a 5-year period. And via statistical analysis, he determined patterns of similarities and differences. And according to these similarities and differences, he developed 5 dimensions of culture. Later on, sixth one of the cultural dimension is added, and it is for you to search. Then we can discuss that in our online session. So, power distance, collectivism versus individualism, femininity versus masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, and long versus short-term orientation are the 5 dimensions according to Hofstadt. So power distance is the extent to which societies accept that power in institution and organization is and should be distributed unequally. Countries with a high power distance index include several in Latin America, Arab states, India, and China, whereas those that are low on this index include the USA, the UK, and Ireland, as well as the Scandinavian countries, Russia, and New Zealand. In the middle are a number of European countries such as France, Greece, and Hungary. In organizational terms, this is reflected in degree of centralization, length of the hierarchy, and size of wage differentials. And don't forget, these countries are mentioned by Hofstadt and via their research. Okay? So the second dimension is individualism and collectivism. Individualism, contributions of individuals to the most valued. Collectivism, an emphasis on the group to the combined unit of joining with others. Within the individualism, it's more like to be Western cultures, and the collectivism tends to be on Eastern cultures. Within individualism, self is more important, self-task, self-progress, individual interest. On the other hand, within collectivism, common good, common task, and common achievement is much more important. So group interest is much more important than personal interest. So think about the information system that you can blend in a collectivist culture will be different than individualist culture. Within the collectivist culture, you should use information system which supports collaboration, information sharing. You can divide tasks into smaller parts so everybody can work together. There is idea sharing, collaboration, but within individualist culture, you should design the information system and organization in a way that everyone is working on their personal achievement. So masculinity stands for society in which social gender roles are clearly distinct. Men are supposed to be assertive, tough, and focus on material success. Women are supposed to be more modest, tender, and concerned with quality of life. On the other hand, femininity stands for a society in which social gender roles overlap. Both men and women are supposed to be modest, tender, and concerned with the quality of life. So within femininity, common traits found in count is that score low on the masculinity scale, and in there is prioritization of family, relationship, and quality of life. Conflict solved through negotiation, and don't forget negotiation is a good technique that you should acquire as a graduate. Men and women share equal position in society. Professionals work to live, meaning longer vacations and flexible working. Examples are Sweden, Scandinavian countries, Spain, Netherlands, Portugal, Thailand, and South Korea. Masculinity. Common traits found in countries that score high on the masculinity scale. Let's see them. They prioritize achievement, wealth, and expansion, settle conflicts through aggressive means. Women and men have different roles in society. Professionals often live to work, meaning longer work hours and short vacations. And examples include Japan, Germany, Ireland, Italy, and Africa. And don't forget, these examples and definitions are from Hofstadt. Okay? Uncertainty avoidance is the cultural dimension which deals with culture's ability to tolerate and deal with uncertainty and ambiguity. It indicates how comfortable or not a culture is when faced with unstructured situations, anything new, surprising, or unexpected. Those cultures which seek to avoid uncertainty do so by enforcing strict rules, laws, and safety measures so as to best prevent unstructured situations from occurring. They also put a heavy emphasis on planning so they know what to expect. And in terms of religion, they support the idea of one absolute truth with no room for deviation. So think about that you are assigned as a manager within a society of who are highly avoiding uncertainty. How are you going to introduce new measures? How are you going to introduce new technology or new system? It will be very difficult because people do not like uncertainty. And don't forget, as we already covered within the first weeks, innovation, technology, creativity needs try new attempts. And as you try new attempts, it's more likely that you will make a mistake. And if you are in a society with highly avoiding uncertainty, it will be much more difficult for you to be innovative or introduce new practices for the workforce. So within the business context, those operating within high uncertainty avoidance culture look to minimize anything out of ordinary occurring by activities such as requesting more details when drawing up contracts, ensuring their staff have clearly specified competencies to lessen the likelihood of mistakes, and drawing up specific procedures for getting things done with little room for flexibility or initiative. Then uncertainty acceptance. Cultures which have a low level of uncertainty avoidance are much more flexible and accepting of a change and development, meaning they are less anxious about the future and the unknown situations could bring with it. So within this culture environment, we are more likely to try new methods, implement new technology, use new systems without getting resistance from the employees. When we check the fifth dimension, long-term versus short-term orientation, it is the degree to which societies emphasize links with the past while dealing with the challenges of present and the future. As Hofstadt notes, long-term orientation stands for fostering of virtues oriented towards future rewards, in particular perseverance and faith. Long-term orientation stands for the fostering of virtues related to past and the present, in particular respect for tradition, preservation of faith, and fulfilling social obligations. High long-term orientation countries such as China prefer long-term human resource management strategies and are more likely to foster a harmonious and cooperative workplace rather than short-term orientation cultures. This is unsurprising considering the long Confucian tradition in the Chinese culture. Besides China, East Asian countries such as Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore have a high LTO scores, while continental European countries are in the middle range. And short-term orientation countries include Great Britain, the USA, Canada, and other Anglo-Saxon countries, while the African countries score very short-term, according to Hofstadt.